able to do traffic calming. And would this be a possible mitigating thing? One of the, just another of many that I wish you had more time to actually work on mitigation. Could the park and rec vehicles just use Craig? Will this be difficult for them? I know they like to drive the backhoes really fast, and the employees are always late for work, and they like high speed, down there. And when I went down and talked to Carl Thompson, he was obviously very opposed to any traffic calming. Is he just like, we're going to put all this effort into signatures, talking about it, trying to get Play Ball to be a partner also in the traffic calming, just to find out we don't get any, that it won't happen?
Okay, that's a legitimate concern. Hickory Street. Fortunately, I'll be done in about 30 seconds, sir, because 9 o'clock is coming up. No, just kidding. That's what I'm saying, that there's two portions of traffic calming. One is our technical committee of the public works people. Carl Thompson is our traffic services superintendent, who has a lot of knowledge about traffic calming and also traffic routes and traffic behavior. But we also include our fire department, police department, bus company, and our bicycle pedestrian program as well. So some corridors are conducive for traffic calming. Other corridors where you want to get a fire truck down in a hurry, or you have a bleaker furniture manufacturer that may have large delivery trucks, may not accommodate a traffic circle. There may be other applications, such as those bulb outs, or maybe a rumble strip, or some other types of applications that could be used. So it's site-specific and neighborhood-specific.
How much of it, say, will they is like bleaker furniture can access off wall Parks and Rec and Craig, where no one lives, we can bother it. And they used to because they can't get
Okay. The question is, what about modifying some of these businesses' behaviors? Or Parks and Rec taking Craig Lane or something like that. That's not a normal process to have telling property owner that you need to use a certain route. Once there's a public right-of-way adjacent to a property, they have rights to access that and go where they may. We want to adapt to where those patterns are established. Semis, there's a question about trucks, semis. There is truck routes in the city of Missoula, and what that does is designate specific corridors, and you can picture the major streets are truck routes, and it requires that delivery trucks and large trucks use those truck routes, can only travel on non-truck routes to go from a truck route to their destination and back. So you can go for a bleaker furniture, they can go from bleaker furniture to the truck route and back, but they can't use the side streets to cruise the neighborhood in their semi-trucks. Question here.
City will use this parking lot as for other than parking during baseball games and auxiliary events. This will introduce a lot of traffic into the neighborhood, which, back to the discussion we were having 5 minutes ago about traffic calming, may be something that adds more than 24 or 36 or 40 events a year of parking to the neighborhood, and may be a new use and a new amount of traffic in this neighborhood that we're not really addressing very fully in this agreement. There's a short paragraph that addresses it, and I think that some of the questions about traffic and parking go beyond addressing parking during games and events.
Thank you. That's a good question. Everybody here, the question is about Section 16 and the park and ride. That may extend the impacts of development of this area beyond the events. And shouldn't that be accommodated or accounted for in these other sections of parking and traffic calming? I absolutely agree. One thing we talked about with a parking lot, it's probably one of the most benign uses of land other than knapweed for traffic impacts. You picture any other type of land use that's retail, industrial, residential, or commercial, has people coming and going. That's the nature of the land use. With a park and ride, people park, car sits, they go. So from a land use impact for developed property in an urban area, a parking lot especially a park and ride type of facility, is one of the most benign as far as traffic, creation of traffic. However, I think you've got a very good point. This is beyond the special events and the stadium use and needs to be accounted for. I don't know that 200 stall parking lot, if it was used to the max every day, that's 400 trips there and back. Is a relatively, again, speaking as city engineer, 400 trips a day is a relatively minor use for many acres of land compared to what it could be in other applications. It doesn't mean we don't have to account for it. I'm saying it could be much different, much worse.
We still only have Craig Lane and Hickory Street accessing.
Currently. I foresee a future when Craig Lane goes through to Russell Street. Yes, ma'am.
When you put in a traffic calming device, how do you decide which residents will pay for it?
Okay. Put in a traffic calming device. I explained there's this temporary process. Then we go to a petition process, basically, and we talk about creating a special improvement district. The state allows the city to create an improvement district which sets an assessment boundary that identifies specific parcels of property that would pay for the benefit of traffic calming. So at the city council's determination, they set assessment district boundaries. In a practical sense, what we've done in the past is look at the immediate adjacent properties that may or may not be appropriate in this type of a civic stadium environment or influence area. But that's the way that our normal traffic calming program sets up, is that the block immediately adjacent to the improvements pays for it. Did that answer your question?
Not just like the four corner houses, but all four
It's,
blocks?
usually it's the extent of the block that is calmed, if you will. Right. Right, it could be 4 blocks paying for one circle would be, in some cases, an alternative. If it's usually there's one main street and the minor streets. The main streets are the ones that are petitioning for the traffic calming, and those main streets, in our experience, have been the ones that have been assessed, not the side streets that were already very quiet. Question in the back. I feel like Oprah there.
On February 20th, you mentioned at a charrette right here that the neighborhood would be parked. Do you remember that?
I don't remember the specific conversation, but why don't you ask the question?
Is it your feeling the neighborhood will be, how far will the parking go into the neighborhood? Because we did discuss it at the charrette. Also, a question for Jeff. Are the 4 corners on that are mentioned, are they in the MRA district, or 3 of them, it looks like, may be out of the district? Is that correct?
My answer is yes. Will you record that into the microphone that yes?
Yes, they're all in the district?
No, yes, they're out.
Okay, so these corners may not have the tax increment financing available to them.
You could have used a fixed mic.
This is a very complicated question that Jim has asked about using tax increment outside of the district. We have in the past used tax increment outside of the district, and I think you and I had this discussion, and the 2 cases that come to mind are the Northside Railroad crossing, where that railroad crossing services our district, but it doesn't do the district any good just to do one side of it. So it has to have a terminus,
Jeff?
and it happens to be outside the district.
Jeff, excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't know if the tape player's supposed to be going. If
It's not. We're going to use the MCAT tapes, Dave.
oh, you got it. Okay.
The other example is the case of there was a water main or a sewer that we extended actually down Hickory Street about 8 years ago. The nearest sewer to service Big Sky Brewing was outside of the district, but the property that the sewer went to was in the district. We had to build a sewer that went outside of the district in order to serve a district property. So if the decision makers, if the policy makers create this nexus of facility in the district needing to be made whole by putting in the traffic calming outside of the district as a connected influence of the project, then I think it's conceivable that the tax increment funds could be used for that. If the tests and the studies and the neighbors want, I mean, this is something that we understand needs to be looked at. I think it's one of the reasons why this particular issue is so vague in the development agreement. It has to be examined, you have to look at it, and you have to want it. It's not something that MRA certainly does not want to stick traffic calming in your neighborhood if it's not something that you want.
Again, like, I always say that whether the neighborhood wants it or not. So petitions, because people won't like it, they want to speak through, and their voices is great, is the people in the neighborhood.
Like a voice of experience.
Yeah.
There is literally a petition process, and we look for a significant majority. We speak well over 50% in the 60% range before we typically would act on a temporary project. I think we're beyond that. I think there's an assumption that temporary facilities would be tried. We'd let them go through a season, and then there would be, if we were to create a special improvement district with either the redevelopment agency as a major funding partner, it's not a normal circumstance. Typically, SIDs are based on whoever pays has the control. So if you pay 100%, you have the control to protest that district. This case, I would expect a process to be set up where there would be a SID boundary, an influence area, if you will, a petition of that area, and an ability to protest or object to the traffic calming, or to petition for the traffic calming. In a normal SID, that's those votes are relative to assessment costs. If there's no assessment, then this is breaking new ground for SID creation, in my experience.
When would the study be done, and how long of a delay would there be before we go in? We signed petitions once, and I noticed the study was done on a rainy week, 1 week before all the park and rides people went to work, 2 weeks before the softball player started. You know, it was the quietest time.
Mhm.
So I think we didn't follow up.
Okay, these studies, at least for I can speak to our city traffic calming program, there's an extensive duration, months and months and months. We like to go through a school season. We like to go through a winter season. Summer tends to be when the kids are away and the traffic impacts are less. But then we've got a baseball stadium here. So we might look at a whole year tryout to go through all of the seasons and cycles of impacts in the neighborhood.
So it could be 2 or 3 years before you traffic calm.
No, the traffic calming would be in place throughout this trial period. There would be temporary facilities stuck in place on the ground so that the neighborhood would live with or not live with. You know, if they said that this is not working, change it, modify it, then that's what we're here to do. However, you've got some extraordinary things happening in your neighborhood. Orange Street Bridge, you've already seen a minor amount of impact related to some of the fill work that was done. That's expected to be bid by the Department of Transportation after the new year, and construction could begin, weather permitting, in the late winter, early spring. It could be that soon. There's anticipated to be 2 years of Orange Street Bridge construction. Orange Street will be open throughout the construction process, but certainly normal traffic patterns will be affected by a major construction project on Orange Street and Craig Lane. The other thing is that certainly if there is a Civic Stadium construction project, that adds to it. So you won't have normal traffic patterns for the 2-year period during the Orange Street Bridge, certainly independent of what happens with the stadium. Yes?
Are they planning to start the clock site here at Orange and Front at the same time?
Yes, that'll start next spring. Spring or summer.
I have a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Steve. You faxed me a memo the other day that was a response to Play Ball's traffic mitigation plan, dated September 21st, and it refers to number 11 in Play Ball's proposed traffic and parking mitigation strategy, which states, should traffic calming tests indicate the need for permanent calming structures, the city will pursue MRA funding to share the cost of the structures with the Riverside neighborhood. And your reply to that was that you recommend this item be changed to, in quotes, if traffic calming is shown to be effective, play ball with the neighborhood will apply to the city for permanent traffic calming, and play ball will be responsible for the costs of any permanent traffic calming measures to mitigate Civic Stadium events. Would you please comment on that further and expound on that as much as you can for us tonight?
Thanks, Mary Ann. I don't feel on the spot at all. I think it's a reasonable question. In the initial draft of a traffic plan, and Gerald, maybe you can help me with the source of that traffic plan. It was this group that generated a first draft of a traffic plan for neighborhood mitigation. That's my understanding. I received a memo from Gerald Mueller with proposals for traffic mitigation. One of the items was traffic calming. City Public Works Department responded to that proposed traffic impact mitigation plan. And the traffic calming component was there. City Public Works is focused on the work elements. The traffic calming seems like a very reasonable thing to consider and incorporate. And our recommendation was, and what a normal recommendation for the city is, that it's not a city liability, that it's the impact tours liability. However, and we hadn't had a chance to talk about this, this is more of a technical recommendation. There's a negotiation process happening between the city and the neighborhood and play ball for how all of these components are going to be financed, who's going to pay for them, when it's going to be paid for, and what happens if it's not paid for. So those elements in my recommendation that came from the Public Works Department is not a binding recommendation. It's a normal recommendation. When we have a development project in a neighborhood, the developer pays for the impact mitigation. Does that answer your question?
So then that would be your recommendation.
No, I didn't say that. I said that's a normal recommendation, that there's an extraordinary process going on here. And I think that the process that's before us now with the city, play ball in the neighborhood is going to bear fruit with a negotiated outcome.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm curious if anybody else has comments for us, at least. And I don't know if Steve wants.
If you guys go, I'm going.
Okay. Well, I hope we can wrap it up anyways. I was surprised we got done by 9, frankly, and there I was asking for more time, but it seems to me like we could wrap it up soon.
Ed has one comment, I know, and then it's, unless there's some more hands. Okay, let's hear from Ed here.
I have one thing. I want to thank all of you for coming, and most of all for you staying. Many of the people who have left, I hope, will hear this, because what we're doing tonight essentially is about 1/4 of this process. We don't get to have one more meeting and retire. And as I go through here, about 1/3 of your comments are very relevant to this plan that we're discussing tonight. But still ahead of us are the development agreement, which includes things like lighting, traffic. All of these things are included. How the parking lot is laid out and constructed. All of the things that you have questions about will also now be discussed again in the development agreement. So a lot of the things you've said will be very useful as we do this agreement. Also, there will be a legal lease that goes back and forth between these two. This is just a preliminary agreement to get this process started. It's not designed to do every little detail, because we can't do that in one agreement, is obvious here, if we can't do 1/4 of it. Then we also will really be important for you, and where you will have major input, is in the manual of policies. That's where your neighborhood is going to have a great amount of say. And that's the things like, is this parking lot going to be swept? Are they going to have flowers? This is only 1/4, and I hope you people understand that we're going to sit here and take a lot more abuse before this is over. But thank you again. The comments have just been wonderful, and I think very, very useful. I don't set those meetings, I just have to go to them.
Who sets the meeting?
Well, we could take that as a comment that if, what I hear you saying is you'd rather have them after work, normal work hours, the team could talk about doing that. We've been having them at, what, 3:30? It's difficult for some of us to make it at those other hours, but we'll discuss it and try to do that. That's what I hear you saying, right? You'd rather have it at...
Well, supposedly there are public meetings, and most of the public cannot access the meetings at that time.
Okay.
And also, I don't know, where are they publicized so that we can keep an eye out for them when you all meet? Or are they publicized?
Have they been publicized?
I understand they're public meetings, is that correct?
I can't tell you that.
Yes, they are public meetings, and anyone's welcome to come and participate. It's not an official public hearing,
Right.
so there's no actual notice requirement of every single meeting. It's kind of like our committee meetings. We schedule those every Monday night for that Wednesday. So there's usually advance notice of our Tuesday meetings, though. If you call the mayor's office, or you can probably call Jeff, he knows when all the meetings are. But they've normally been on Tuesday afternoons at 3:30.
Okay. And is this the entire committee minus the mayor?
We're missing a baseball, softball representative.
Yeah.
Pat McDonald from the Softball Association.
And I believe the mayor is not officially a part of the team, though he's been participating, right?
Correct. Oh, I don't know the official part or not, but he's been at every meeting, either that or Janet Stevens on his behalf.
Yeah,
Oh, maybe he is.
He is an official.
Okay.
yeah.
And he's sick tonight, is my understanding, by the way.
Oh.
Mary Ann, you got a comment?
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody could, maybe Jeff, I guess, tell us where we are as far as the status of the environmental study. The team was told that the environmental study, that we would have that in mid-September. We're well into November here, and there's no end in sight. What's going on?
I'm not sure that Gerald can answer that question.
All right, Gerald?
It's my understanding that the studies have been completed and that the report is being written. It may be done now, so that we should have it very soon.
And not seeing any other hands, not any other comments, then would you please step to the mic, please? Thank you.
It's my understanding that the Orange Street Bridge is being widened to reduce the pollution in that area. So I'm guessing that pollution is a problem, but nobody's touched on that. With the addition of all this traffic that's going to be going down in there, and I'm guessing we're talking about thousands of cars because that's the number for the parking lot there. Has anybody thought about how the pollution is going to be affected?
Okay. So, thank you very much for your time. Anytime.